Dear friends, as we hear this striking parable in the gospel today about the rich man and the poor man, and how at the end of their life, one went to heaven, to the bosom of Abraham, and one went to hell, to torment, and how Abraham makes comment that there is a great chasm between the rich and the poor, the rich man and the poor man, so that no one can go from one side to the other. In a way, I naturally think of, India. I don't know why that would be, since, my brother is finally here from India. I think of India because, as many of you may know, India has had a very long tradition, not necessarily good, of having very differentiated divides between rich and poor. Earlier this week, as Father and I were sitting down and reflecting on this gospel along with Deacon Dick, Father spoke about the conditions in India, which many of us may be aware of. Right? How there are individuals who are very, very rich, richer than even some of the average Americans, and there are those who live in such poverty that we could not even imagine. And how, for centuries, it's been ingrained in the mindset of India that, that's just simply the way it is. That those who are rich because they're intended to be rich. They were born to be rich. And those who are poor, they were born to be poor. And there's no regard oftentimes between the rich for the poor. Now, we may look and say, that's so very far off. But is it? Is it so very far off from our experience? Maybe the aspect of the destitution of the poor there, the way in which they are just absolutely neglected. We've seen the photos through the years, particularly with Mother Teresa and her sisters, ministering to the dying and the poor lying in the gutters. There are individuals, even right here, who are just as impoverished. Maybe not materially. As Mother Teresa once famously said, the greatest poverty of the world is poverty of spirit. Those who do not know God, those who do not know love. That's the greatest poverty. And there are so many right here among us who do not know God, who do not know love. And the question is, what is our attitude? What is our attitude towards the other? The individual who, yes, might lack, those necessities of life, material necessities. I know we're very generous as a parish, but we're willing to, from a distance, be generous. Drop a few coins or a few dollars into a basket. But are we willing to roll up our sleeves and to get to know the other? Are we willing to go and to give of our time, to spend with the individual who is longing to know love, relationship, to know God? That's ultimately what we are called to. Because it's a beautiful thing that because of this gospel passage and the teachings of our Lord Jesus Christ, so many of us have been moved with a care and a concern for the poor. The greatest of our saints, the ones who we revere the most, are the ones who have been most devoted to the poor. As I've made mention of Mother Teresa already, she comes readily to mind. Also partly because Monday and Tuesday of next week, a new movie about her is being released. It'll be at the Tiffin Movie Theater Monday and Tuesday, first Monday and Tuesday of October. Good opportunity to go and to be renewed in just that reflection of her life and the great love that she had for the poor. But throughout the history of the church, many of those most beloved, and I think even the most beloved who are poor, the royalty of Europe, the ones who've been regarded as saints, were the ones who were most devoted to the poor. Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, Saint Elizabeth of Portugal, Saint Margaret of Scotland. These queens, and some of their husbands, yes, were very devoted to the poor. And they're the ones that have been raised to the altar as saints. So as Christians, we have that ingrained in us. We know it. We realize it. Father had made mention that there is a little bit of a difference in India between the Christians and the non-Christians, in that the Christians most of the time recognize that all that we receive is a gift of God, and that our brothers and sisters are gifts of God, and that the Christians are generally more attentive to the other. But what of us? What of us? Are we moved by this gospel? Are we moved by the example of those beloved saints? Moved by the example of our brothers and sisters who themselves give generously of their time to ourselves? Go. I'm always so greatly edified by those parishioners who do. I'm thinking in a particular way of those who go and visit the sick, who visit the homebound, and who spend quality time with them. It's such a gift. And that is what our Lord invites us. That we who have been moved by the one who was raised from the dead, to go forth and to bring life and love to those who are poorest, those who lack love and the knowledge of God. And so may we be inspired this week to go forth and to bring that life, that love of God to all of our brothers and sisters, especially the most poor and abandoned of spirit.